Hello everyone, I hope you are all well. So we are going to look at some March energy, March predictions, and yeah, I'll throw in a little bit of a mix and then we will do a separate one as well. So I hope you're all feeling blessed. I'm not sure if any of you felt this lunar eclipse. I think I did. Definitely, I think so. With March is a bit more like flow with the energy, okay, ahead of Aries. Now, depending on, your positioning of your sun and your astrology, it will vary on how you feel this energy as well. But say overall, it's more healing, more self-care kind of month because we've got the Virgo lunar eclipse, Pisces energy. And the body and other people's effects, their energies, their vibrations can actually affect us in March. April, we're going to see more noise and action, more so from the mid sort of third week, I feel onwards, we're going to get into some action and which will take us into May. Now, with the Epstein, some surprising announcements will be made, some surprising names, some that won't be surprising. It's going to be a bit mixed. And one thing we need to realize is how much can you consume of news, mass news, social media news, and how much you can release some of any energy that is actually draining you and making you more tired or feeling dark or having like a somatic effect on you. Now, a side note, it's interesting with the sort of conflict that's going on. Iran is USA. When you have people on the ground in certain countries, you can see the disparity of the media, you can see the disparity of the comments, and what is actually happening on the ground. It's very interesting if you've ever had a connection with, some people that have been on the ground in an area. It might not be those three countries itself, but for example, any of the Gulf states and what's being said in the media. And you can, going back to the energy I mentioned on what you consume and what you choose to release, and what days maybe you just choose to disconnect. You may be also then thinking, how am I being helpful to people? And in other areas, are people taking advantage of my kindness or my selflessness? Are some of these people maybe playing victim, where they could take some responsibility for some things in their life? And I feel that that is an energy that we will be looking at, or if not, you need to look at if you're having that somatic effect being brought upon you or you're feeling it. There is in March a bit of a mental health, and there is a dangerous tipping point with the energies, which I'll go into politically, the energies, the geopolitical climate. Now, we might be deciding to explore our family lineage as well as the self-care side of stuff, the self-nurturing. And you might, with that, realize, was my family lineage supportive, or was there some like elusiveness from your perspective, obviously, and the way you feel and were made to feel, and realizations around that? Because you will be feeling sensitive on how you feel about things, and these things may have affected you or oneself, and you may come to that realization. You may even feel it in your body. And if you do, it's not that it's unrelated, by the way. It's okay to recognize these feelings and things. And you may feel like you don't want a gym when you're usually a really avid gym goer or something. You may feel your eating habits the first week of March may change, especially if you're feeling to crave something very different to your daily routine food or the type of food you like to eat. Because what we're ingesting apart from food is also being ingested. Basically, what we take in is being ingested. It's not just food. And family wounds is a big energy for some during this month. I would say with March, flow and dance with the energy, and come to end of April, start to make those changes you want to make. Not to go like, for example, if you don't have a job and you get a job offer and then you don't sign it because of these energies. No, don't, I wouldn't, that's not what I mean. The second week, third week of March into April, there are going to be some implications. And I feel like the 17th, 18th of March are important dates. In February we mentioned some dates and around the 27th. I do think in March we will see a continuation and for some time on cartels, rug house raids. I do predict that there's something coming around a house raid and something around the rug cartels. Just before the 17th, 18th, some of us on an individual level might find that we're being triggered or frustrated, low patience tolerance around the 14th, 15th. I do foresee in the future that a prominent figure, let's say it that way, will come into focus for their illicit substance use or involvement. I do also see that we will see how much a leader has actually aged and possibly been deceptive. And I want you to comment if you think you know who I'm talking about here. In addition, there's another leader who I feel really wants to stand up and say something. Like they actually have the balls to stand up and say something and be assertive and not just sway once they've said it or be pulled back by more assertive, dominant leaders in the globe. We will be seeing how AI, towards the end of March, May, and then later in the year, can cause financial disruption from AI. And I do want to say, in terms of religion and financial crisis, a lot of these wars that's happening, the strategy behind it is obviously the oil, but also the strategy of financial system and also religion. So don't buy into that this is going to be Shia against Sunni Muslims. That's what they want you to be diverted by and see. It's actually a psyop of beliefs. And I was going to do a video on this, and maybe just for members, because I'm not sure some people will be, they might think that I'm standing one side against the other or trying. It's actually knowledge of being open to see something from a different perspective. Philippines, Cambodia, I feel sort of those countries and maybe a couple of more, the water trade is going to be affected by, shipping trade, by like a tsunami or something along those lines that includes water as well. There will be protests, but the protests we will see will eventually work out positively for the collective masses. It might not seem that way initially. Now, we might say diplomacy is needed to help avoid conflict. And when I think of that, Spirit comes in as like, that's what we tend to say. But then again, there is diplomacy and there is diplomacy. Now, back in my last predictions, I said about an actor and I said about I could see a car crash and possibly this could be a sports person. There was a sports person who I don't know who they are. Cara, I think it was, that was involved in a car crash, and I tried to look up the details of the car crash to see if it matches, but this could be the case that I was getting in February, and we had at least 7 actors die in February. The one that I say or unsubscribed, there you go, I've said the wrong word. Very silly, isn't it, really? One of them's still holding on, and the other one was Eric Dane. Okay. I didn't know him by name. I knew him, what he was in, and that I'd seen him, and then seeing that image. With the Nancy Guthrie case, I did say that if they don't close out or come forward by the 17th of Feb, their delay tactic will actually work against the case, and it has. And that's why we see, certain dates that I've given, if they don't aim to achieve it. What's happened is basically, like I said from the beginning, they knew answers. And then there was purposely driven delay tactics from certain sides to cover up, like the EP files. I don't believe she was taken, whatever's happened, because of the EP files. I know some people believe that. Now, we are going to see a lot of movement around immigration. We're going to see some mass immigration, and this is not only in March. Airports flooded, airport troubles and issues. Some of these I want to, it's not only for March, so I'm going to come back to them once I cover particularly closer to March ones. I do think in general over this year we are, okay, so I said something and then I've gone against it, but let's just go with it. Sort of predictions around, I make a prediction around human limbs, and there will be advancements and geotech advancements around limbs for humans, which is very good. I do think that there's going to be a discovery of a new species, and I would say it's not necessarily a mammal. It could be more cold blood reptilian, or what's the other one? When you're younger, you get all these, it's not quite a mammal, but it's not necessarily under cold blood. I do think that discovery is coming in. Now, I did mention in end of December to the end of March, it's going to be a black swan period. And that has come through, as we see with various things that happened. There's immense pain and challenges at the moment. And this lunar eclipse is like fire and earth. And that's what we see, fire on earth. Explosions beyond chaotic control. Especially when we look at the Middle East and Central Asia. What is the problem? Ego, pride, not to settle diplomatically, chemical welfare versus suffering and unsubscribing numbers. March now until the 25th, we will see a weapon, a secret weapon, or a nuclear due to and the US versus Iran. I do think that we are going to see some kind of unconventional weapon as well. And I would say if we was in the industries of weapons, I guarantee that the price of weapons is increased just now. The energy over this next 2 weeks can lead to a strong reaction from any country in this next 2-3 weeks, and it could be something big. Air travel disruption, which we've seen, but I see some issues around that. But what we're also going to see is sea travel not okay. We're going to see issues there. And there is going to be water and a disruption, even in the body for some. Depending on your astrology, stay hydrated. For example, if you've got a moon where they say it's afflicted or moon connected to the south node, you might feel this energy a bit heavier on your mental health. You don't need to know your astrology. You will know if you feel heavier, right? So there's this mental health kind of thing going on, but also there's a crisis of a nuclear possible escalation. Now, some countries say that this country's not safe and it's in basements, etc. I think, like the UAE, they're going back to work, regardless of what the mass media say. I did mention in February that this year we need to be careful of the fear mongering, the creating of rumors just to buy into people, and we will now continue to see fear mongering media. I mentioned the waters, and I see the Navy also having issues. Remember in the last one I said about the inflation around food is going to get higher, oil prices and shortage, and this was before the war commenced. Now, in about 5 months' time, what I'd say is very good is I see promotion, salaries, jobs, but at this moment in time, obviously we will still have the AI impacting jobs, which impacts the financial market as well, but we might see an increase of people that choose just to leave their job. I do see continued in this period of a few months. I did mention, especially from mid onwards, and now as well, that we're going to see a lot of media around women. Do you want me to predict another global women crisis? But women in the news, these could be elite figures, it could be cases, it could be anything. And I did mention certain sensitive areas where these things are going to be around. You need to check the Feb predictions. I believe it's Feb. I also said in before the Feb that this year we will see, a shortage of wheat and that kind of ingredient, or some pricing or some issue around wheat. And I think also gas and shipping trade and trade shortage issues around these areas. 12th, 20th, I don't think the problem around the Gulf countries is going to escalate beyond. I think it's going to balance out. But I do think Iran, we're going to see play out until the end of April. And also the oil prices and fluctuation and cutoff, end of April, will go into April. This whole thing, by the way, is also about oil access and routes for oil for Western countries and European countries. I don't see, just to answer this very clearly, I don't see World War III, nuclear World War III going right now. I did mention the airports being rammed, mass immigration. I also would say in hospitals and prisons there's going to be a high percentage of thefts, and some challenges around that is like a deceptive energy in hospitals and prisons. And in certain jurisdictions, challenges in airports. Overall, though, some of us that have been really suffering with our health, it's going to start to balance out and health becoming better. I'll throw in a bit more predictions. We will see a loss of a leader this year, and I do think that Trump and it could be a family member need to be careful, especially from the second half of the year, and I'd say commencing from summerish onwards. I can't remember when the elections will be, but I do think Duck is going to try to go for a third time. So when is the elections? The UFO releasing will commence, and it will be strategized to cover up for when the next batch or when something big around Epstein is coming out. And I feel like the UFO release communication, anything around that, is going to be increased even more around June, July time and the second quarter. AI, I've mentioned before, we will continue to see breakthroughs in healing of diseases year after year. The thing with this, though, I predict it, I also, I don't trust that they release this all the time, like cancer. I'm sure they have. I'm sure they have ability to heal it in a less ferocious way and earlier. Are they releasing everything? Bill Clinton and the Clintons, I think Clinton in a year and a half is going to have a very challenging time. And this could be around even more secrecy coming out, or his health. It's very, very, I just see him not in a good situation. But right now there is very high exposure on what he's been involved in, and he won't be able to hide the truth of what's coming out. I don't understand how these people were involved in this kind of thing, and they have children. He has a girl, doesn't he? It's really strange. Yeah, I don't know. I question that. It's a bit worrying, isn't it? Going back to some of the predictions that I wanted to say, I don't think Mark Carney will fulfill his full tenature, and I do want to pull cards on that. I still see some secrets coming out about him. I also see, in this month, the coming months, we're going to have some health reforms, and this could be along anything across the globe and various countries. A lot of fake psyop propaganda agendas are coming through. And there's going to be a couple of more missing cases coming up where it's been quite quiet apart from Nancy. If you look at 2024, that was crazy. 2025 was a bit quieter of people going missing in terms of what hits the news, because people going missing all the time, and some catch the news. But there'll be an increase in the figure of people going missing, whether we see it or not, in the next 4 to 5 weeks. I predict that very strongly. I see that. Now, if I just go back to some of the things that I think May to October, I've just mentioned Trump, but I do think it's going to be challenging for him separately as well. And it could be health, it could be communication, it could be tension and stress, delays in litigation matters. I think all elements around that. And the guy, BB, could face some health poisoning, intentional health poisoning. There's something around his health that's coming up. There's going to be broader global exposure around cycles of institutional elite names popping up to remind us not to idolize, okay? And to remind us of what I mentioned in the last one where spirit came in. Karma can be delayed, but it's never forgotten. And unresolved matters are going to be coming up. Major names in scandals, even whistleblowings and whistleblowers in scandals. Fraud is coming up. So, when I say scandals, some people will be like, well, yeah, Epstein is there, so there's nothing. But those elements. Heightened emotional response we're currently in is very sensitive. The psychological pressure, we'll feel it individually, and elites are feeling this immensely, even if they're hiding it. The eclipse for Duck, this is what he'll be feeling. He'll be feeling it quite heavy. But with Duck, he does have an ego side. Otherwise, no one would be able to continue like he has. I guarantee you he's probably had, it must be very difficult. No one else will go on and on with everything that he's had against him if he didn't have some kind of ego. And talking about ego, I don't know why I've been reminded, but spirits reminded me that I wanted to do a short video on why, what's his name, Elon is actually this successful. I do think we're going to see a continued or introduction, if it's not been very much out there, around the protection for animals and the climate. That is going to start coming through evidently, and slowly eradicating where animals are not free. You know how they used to have them in circuses, or the dancing animal, or animal fighting? That is going to go totally. Interest rates in the UK are changing, and I see in some way it's to the benefit to us for the change and not the banks. So could it be that we get interest increase, which is a bit difficult to see in this current climate, but it's going to come up. And I don't mean it for March, I mean it for further down the road. We're looking, it's a general prediction. There is like a runway or an airline mishap, an accident, but I don't see mass lives lost. They kind of catch it on time. I do predict that for the next 12 to 6 months, there will continue be unrest in Mexico. And some of this is internally, and also Mexico and the US, between them, there's going to be some unrest. It'll be calm and then it'll come up again. And I want to remind you of the cartel part that I predicted in the beginning. I also mentioned previously that this year we will see like rain or weather where it's not predicted usually in those countries. So for example, a lot of heavy rain in like desert countries. That's just an example. Like you might think, no, I'm not going to get this heavy rain because I don't live in these certain countries, but it's in unexpected countries. I see climate issues for certain parts of Europe with water as well, and Greece and Italy possibly, as even though I don't think they generally do, but they could be coming up. Now, Italy, I have mentioned around an earthquake. I don't know if it happened. I think this week we're going to see food contamination coming up, but it will be controlled. Starmer is definitely hanging on by a thread, isn't he? And he comes out to say he's standing with the US and which is no surprise. But I wonder if Farage is going to be using immigration as his winning card, but will he actually change it once he's in? That's a question that I keep posing to us. There's going to be border issues around countries. You know, France UK borders is coming up, also possibly the USA again. Immigration could be this thing. The alien disclosure, the UFO disclosure, and progress announcements is definitely coming through. And I feel the white hatters are slowly easing and releasing things so that we don't get into shock. And these could be subliminal things that we see here as opposed to announcements that they're going to do to distract us. Because if it's suddenly, it's going to just send us into shock and we're not really going to understand if we're alive or are we on a different planet. There will be more extraterrestrial discoveries coming up. Even, you know, ancient ways that we used to live, a guide to how we can live in the current day of age that is found in previous books like Nadi's, in maybe books under the pyramids. And I do know that there's certain religions like believe it's the Quran for Islam, that if you read it, it says things like, it's unbelievable really, because at their time they would have been intense, but it's kind of like, you know, the world is changing and slowly after decades of coming, you know, when you see high-rise buildings taking over, etc. I do think we're going to see a skeletal's remain discovery coming up as well very soon. So these are some of the predictions. And with March, flow, okay, flow, don't fight the energy, do what you feel is needed, okay, to feed yourself and digest what you need. And that could be disconnecting, it could be changing the people you speak to. And lastly, I want to remind you, if you want any of my sort of services, guidance, psychic reading, it's all listed in the bio on the YouTube page, and my email is also there. If you've got any questions, you can email me. And there's also obviously energy healing, which, you know, is one of my main things as well. Everything on there is what I provide to clients, and I am, what can I say? I don't like to say qualified because that's what everyone likes to say, but well versed, and I got into this through not only knowing but the results that people have had. So everyone, stay blessed, take care, and I hope you enjoyed this in terms of staying with me all the way through, and I will see you in the next one. Make sure your notifications is on, because as soon as members have seen this, it will go automatically to subscribers. Stay blessed, and bye for now.